Hello students and welcome to my channel. Today we shall do Verbs chapter 8. Now what are verbs? Verbs are action words. Verb is also called an action word without which a sentence cannot be formed. Now students, there is no sentence which can exist without a verb. So a sentence must have a verb to give some meaning to it. Now let's break the ice. Fill in the box to find out a verb. Pictures have been given as clues. Now what is the boy doing? He is riding a horse. So riding a horse is a action word. He is riding the horse. What is the boy doing? The boy is riding a horse. What is this boy doing? He is climbing the ladder. He is climbing. That means the action being done by the boy is climb. He is climbing. Now the boy is using a skipping rope, so he is skipping. The boy is flying. The teacher is teaching. So these are all action words. They are called as verbs and they are giving a particular meaning to your sentence. Now a verb is the most essential part of a sentence. In fact, there can be no sentence without a verb. Verb indicates an action, a state of being or an occurrence. Now, it will be clear to you once you read the given words. Speak, kick, read, lick, hit, etc. In all these things, something is being done, some action is being taken. So, these words are referred to as action words or verbs. Now, what according to you are these words doing? These words are expressing action, that is something a living being can do. Therefore, these words are also called action words or verbs. Examples: Rani swims in the evening. What is the action being done by Rani? Swimming. So, Rani swims. Swims is the verb. Daniel became the head of science department. What is the action that has taken place? Daniel became the head of science department. So became is the verb here. Important thing to remember, in a sentence the subject must have a verb, otherwise the sentence would not be considered a sentence. Now for example, Rani swims in the evening. Who is the subject here? Rani is the subject. So it is saying in a sentence the subject must have a verb. So the subject Rani has the verb swims. The subject Daniel has the verb became. This is how you should connect your subject to your action word, which is your verb. Verbs are words of doing. A verb is a word that tells us about existence, that is the being of something. Possession, that is the having of something. Or action, that is the doing of something. So these are the three things which a verb will tell us about. About whom? About the subject in the sentence, about the particular place which or name of a thing which is mentioned in the sentence, which is referred to as a subject. What that subject is doing is told about by the verb. Example: the girl is playing badminton. Who is the subject here? Girl. What is she doing? She is playing badminton. So the action done by the girl is playing. So action playing shows the action done by the girl. Angela is the sole proprietor. Being is shows the state of Angela. Now is, students, is the linking verb over here, which you shall read in your next classes. Angela is the subject. She is the sole proprietor. That means we are linking Angela by the linking verb is as the sole proprietor, as being the sole proprietor. That means it is showing just the state. What is the state of Angela? She is the sole proprietor. Number C. My father has 3 bungalows. So my father is the subject. What does he possess? That means I told you it shows existence, possession and action. Your playing is showing action. Angela is the sole proprietor is showing your existence, and my father has 3 bungalows is showing possession. So possession has shows that my father possesses or has something. What does he have? He has or possesses 3 bungalows. Now creativity. Try out one. Identify the action words. in the given sentences and write in the space provided. Also draw the pictures related to each sentence in your art file. Number 1. The environment includes all the living beings, and this is beings, children, not beings, and physical constituents. So here, what is the action word? Include. The environment, which is a subject, includes all the living beings and physical constituents. So please write includes over here. Next, we classify environment into natural environment and human environment. What do? We are the subject, we classify. So classify is the action word. Number 3, the earth rotates on its axis. Earth is the subject. What is the action being done by the earth? Rotating. So rotates is your action word. Next, direct rays of the sun fall on the equator on 21st March. Identify the subject, sun. What is the sun doing? Its rays are falling on the equator. So the action word is fall. Number 5, the river flows down the slopes of mountains. What is the subject? River. What is the action being done by the subject? It is flowing down. So flows is your action word over here. I hope it is clear to you, students. Next, we will understand what are the kinds of verbs. Now this is very important, so please pay attention carefully. Verbs on the basis of function are chiefly categorized into two things: main verbs and auxiliary verbs. Now main verbs are also called primary or principal verbs, whereas auxiliary verbs are also called helping verbs. Verbs are of two kinds: main verbs, auxiliary verbs. Main verbs also called principal verbs, auxiliary verbs also called helping verbs. Next, main verbs again are of two kinds: regular and irregular. And auxiliary verbs are again of two kinds: primary auxiliaries and modal auxiliaries. Now, let us understand all this with examples. I rarely take coffee. Benjamin can play football. In the first sentence, I rarely take coffee, the verb take expresses the meaning without any help. It is independent of anything. Such verbs are called principal verbs. That means in this sentence there is only one verb. There is no other helping verb or main verb. This is the only verb over here. In the second sentence, Benjamin can play football. The verb play is taking help from can, which is a modal auxiliary verb here, which you shall read. It expresses the complete meaning. Such verbs are called auxiliary verbs. Play is a verb, but it is being assisted by another verb, which is the modal verb called can. So these are called auxiliary verbs. But I rarely take coffee is just a take is only the main verb here. There is no other additional verb in the sentence. I hope you understand the difference between these two. Only exists independently, existing with another verb. So look at these sentences. Subject Monica has sung. The verb has sung. Neha subject can dance. We subject will go. The verbs in the given sentences are in two parts. There are two parts for the verb. Can you see? Part 1, part 2. In sentence 1, has is the auxiliary verb and sung is the principal verb. Principal verb or the main verb. This is the main verb. And has is the auxiliary verb. Auxiliary means helping. Auxiliary means helping. So this has is helping the main verb to complete the sentence. In sentence 2, can is the auxiliary verb or helping verb, and dance is the principal verb or the main verb. So can is helping the verb, main verb dance, to give more meaning to the sentence. Similarly, in sentence 3, will is the auxiliary verb and go is the principal verb. So now can you understand what is the function of auxiliary verb? Auxiliary verb is also called helping verb. It is mentioned in the sentence in addition to your main verb or the principal verb. So forms of auxiliary verbs are again primary auxiliaries and modal auxiliaries. Now let us understand what are primary auxiliaries. primary auxiliaries are mainly used to change the tense or voice of the main verbs. Tense means how many tenses are there? 3. Past, present and future. Voice, active voice or passive voice. So, primary auxiliaries are mainly used to change either the tense or the voice of the main verbs. They are also used to make interrogative sentences. What are interrogative sentences? Questioning sentences which end with a question mark, have question tags like why, what, who, when, where, which, and negative sentences, those which have a negative meaning. That means the meaning of the sentence is not in the positive sense. Like suppose somebody says nothing is possible. That means this is a negative sentence. But if somebody says everything is possible, this sentence has some positive meaning to it. So primary auxiliaries are used to make interrogative sentences and negative sentences. These auxiliaries can function both as helping as well as main verbs. That means primary auxiliaries, we know auxiliary verbs are of how many kinds? We know auxiliary verbs are of primary auxiliaries and modal auxiliaries. But over here what are we saying? That primary auxiliaries can be used both as helping as well as main verbs. Now there are 3 primary auxiliaries. Keep this in mind. Be, do and have. What are the 3 primary auxiliaries? Be, do and have. Example, we are working on the project. Working is as such your verb. Are is the helping verb or the auxiliary verb. Helping verb or auxiliary verb which is being added with your verb working to give more clarity to the sentence. We are always with you. This is the main verb. Now, modal auxiliaries are used with the main verb to express the tone or mood of the speaker. Some of the modal auxiliaries are can, could, may, might, shall, should, must, will, would, etc. Examples, may I come in, sir? I will tell you the truth. Modal auxiliaries are used only as a helping verb for the main verb. This is very important. They are used only as a helping verb for the main verb. May I come in? I will tell you the truth. Now, come is the main verb and tell is the main verb. But when we add these modals, may, will, then they are used as a helping verb for the main verb. These are used as the helping words for the main verbs. Now, forms of verbs. Verbs are basically divided into 2 forms. Regular verbs, irregular verbs. Which verbs are divided into 2 forms? The main verbs or the principal verbs. Like over here we read, verbs are of 2 kinds based on function. Main verbs, auxiliary verbs. Main verbs again are divided into regular and irregular. Now let us understand this. What are regular verbs? Regular verbs are those verbs which will form the past tense. Past tense means something which has already happened, by adding ed or d or t to the base form of the verb. Base form of the verb means which is just without any suffix. That means anything coming after the word. That means base form paint, build, hate. What is the past form of paint? Painted. Past form of built? Built. Past form of hate? Hated. So if I add to the base form of these 3 either ed, d or t, then it takes the past form. So these are called the regular verbs. These are all called regular verbs. Now what are irregular verbs? Irregular verbs form their past tense and past participle forms in the following ways. They are also called strong verbs. Now this thing happens in 3 ways. Verbs that are alike in all 3 forms, that means base form, past tense and past participle. Okay, so base form, that means they are alike in all the 3 forms. In the base form also, past tense also and past participle also. Rid, rid. Shed, shed, shed. In all the 3 forms they are the same. But verbs that are alike in 2 forms, base form beat, past tense bait, past participle beaten. Base form bend, past tense bent, past participle also bent. So verbs that are alike in any 2 forms. In the first thing, verbs that are alike in all the 3 forms. Second, verbs that are alike in any 2 forms. Breed, bred, bred. Bring, brought, brought. Any 2 forms they are alike. You have to go through this. Next, verbs that form the past tense or the past participle by changing the vowel of the base form. That means your base form, the vowel will change. Here it is base form blow. In past tense it becomes blue. That means O vowel is changed to E vowel. And past participle becomes blown. Drink becomes drank, drunk. We are changing only the vowels over here. Can you see? I vowel changes to A in past tense and U in past participle form. Tear becomes tore and tone. We are only changing the vowels over here. So these are the 3 to 4 ways in which verbs will form their past tense or past participle form. Verbs having all 3 forms different, like base form for be becomes past tense was and past participle been. Be, was, been. You have to go through this whole table to understand. Now, critical thinking. Fill in the blanks with the correct form of the verb given in the brackets. How many cars have you buy so far? Have you bought so far? B-O-U-G-H-T, bought so far. It had become very hot, so we went inside. It had become very hot, so we went inside. Like I told you, verbs will remain the same in 2 forms. So, it had become remains the same in the past form also. Therefore, it remains as become. She has dash ill for a week. B. She has been ill for a week. Like over here, be, was, been. So, past participle form becomes been for base form be. She has been ill for a week. The teacher was not in the class. She had go to library. She had gone to go, gone, went. So, she had gone to the library. The convict was keep under police custody. Keep becomes kept in your past tense. They have already have lunch. They have already had lunch in the past form. The verb have takes had form in the past tense. By the time the teacher dash arrived, the students had left the class. Now how do we change arrived to the past form? By adding ed. So the teacher had arrived. A-R-R-I-V-E-D, had arrived if the students had left the class. Has she ever drive a car before? Drive becomes driven. Has she ever driven a car before? Number 9. We dash begin painting a house yesterday. We began. We began. Here what are we doing? We are changing the vowel I to vowel A. This is how you will have to identify these kind of sentences and keep practicing. More you practice, the more you will become an expert in doing these exercises. Number 10. This dash the first time Jaya did not do her work. This was the first time Jaya did not do her work. You have hurt my feelings. Now, like verbs remain the same in certain forms. So, you have remains you have hurt remains you have hurt my feelings. The coward king flee the battlefield. Flee past tense becomes fled. The coward king fled the battlefield.